Yeah.
All right. I didn't do my reflections, by the way, because everybody added, well, 3 of you did reflections. So I'm like, yeah, it's basically what's going on.
That's fine.
Yeah, sorry, same thing here. I just agreed with
good.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did have a hard time replying to CJ's because I literally actually like I was trying to do an experiment where I record myself watching it and like in a loom so I could just add voice comments. But the problem is I was just watching it and I'm like, I have nothing to say. Like I'm just like, yep, that's a question. I don't have any ideas there either. Yep, that sounds good. Great. That was basically my experience. And I'm like, okay, now what?
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes that'll just happen. Like a few
Nice.
people just have the feedback that can carry the whole thing. We don't all need to do it. And
Yep.
yeah, if there's any clarifying stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I watched back through some of the video and like there's so much in that, and there is so little grounding that I have for how you would get to there. It's like a lot of like I just feel my brain saturated the whole time. Like I don't know what to get specifically. So yeah, I don't know. It's good seeing the reflections come from other people because I can sort of ground in the thing a little bit better. So, but yeah, cool. Anyways, I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but here we are.
Some sort of reflection, live reflection.
Yeah, it's a
which I think is
reflection on a lack
perfect as well.
reflection. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the one thing that sort of popped up for me is like rewatching it, and I still don't, I guess, have like a solid answer on this, and maybe I can form this into a question. Like, so we were talking a lot about like the sort of pre-published environment, like pre-chain environment, and I still don't know if that's the right way to think about this, but like the way I have the mentality is basically there's a scoped environment where we are creating blocks technically that can go on chain but don't need to, and like what the nature of like what the nature of that is actually, like where do you store it on IPFS like a block, and then that is technically off chain, and then you just have a pointer to it when you mint it into it goes through a Solidity contract, and then that's the publish event. Is that how we're thinking about this, or am I like off on that? That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that was like spot on to my understanding. The only difference is that I think everything is on IPFS and everything is a pointer always. So there's really no like functional difference between how the data gets to IPFS now and later.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're literally just moving around the pointers.
Okay, and so the process of like sort of, I guess it's just putting it on the Ethereum blockchain then effectively is the like publish event. Is that
I think that's what we're saying.
yeah.
But there's kind of, it seems like there's 2 publish events, because one of them is the squad level, right?
Yeah.
Which is more internal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is technically publishing, but it's the small world network, so it doesn't feel as much like publish versus share. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good distinction.
I guess the question there would be, what level of privacy is right for that? Like, is something just being on the blockchain, but not necessarily like, promoted or shared widely? Is that what like satisfies that need in terms of privacy and being able to share with it internally?
Yeah. So in that case, what like, is that just the IPFS part of it, or is there?
It could be the blockchain too. I mean, I guess the like concentric circles of sharing outwards, and like, yeah, I don't know. I think like I guess all I'm saying is that there's a privacy through putting something into a massive like, blockchain and IPFS space without pointing at it necessarily. That is still some degree of privacy. But I
Yeah.
guess I'm just curious if that's what we want, or if that's too public for something, or yeah.
Right. I guess, like, Shahruz, are you saying that like essentially on the website itself, if it's not visible, then effectively like most people are not going to see it unless they like really went digging, because it is there publicly available on the blockchain.
Yeah. I guess just like, yeah, it is something that's on the blockchain, so it's public, but it's not necessarily easy to access. Does that satisfy some, one of those concentric circles of sharing at a level?
Yeah, if that's the case, then like there must be some patterns for privacy, like privacy, like you can't see it at all.
I would just assume encrypted, right?
Yeah.
That'd be at least my first assumption, is like maybe a block has the public key associated with it, and then you can encrypt the actual contents of the block using the private key. Something to that effect. I don't know if that scheme exactly makes sense, but then only the person with the private key should be able to decrypt that data. So anyone could theoretically access that data from the blockchain, but no one could actually read it. But they would know who has the key to read it, because then that would also make it queryable for someone to actually access. Unless, I mean, without using something fancier like homomorphic encryption and like trying to figure out that data through some scheme.
Yeah. So then the pattern there would be like you just have a sort of encrypted bubble where, like, if you do need things, like, so what's the input? Like, is it just mark this as private? Like, and then can you unprivate it? Like, is there another, it like goes through a process where it is made public? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's a little better. All right.
I think that process would be like that original block that was encrypted on IPFS always is going to be remaining on IPFS encrypted, but you can always later decrypt it and put it publicly on IPFS.
Okay.
And then that's like the unchecking the box. All of a sudden it goes public. And now the block on the blockchain pointing to it changes the IPFS hash or whatever. A new block on the blockchain is published.
Okay, so we have a privacy method, I mean, a general model for that anyway. And through the process,
exact details might need to work out, but
I'm looking for more of the metaphor here so that like I can understand. Well, I'm trying to understand what the environments like for, actually working with this stuff are going to, I mean, even in the cruftiest sense. So I like, when I sit in front of a text area and a button, and then there's like, some concept of, okay, so the next concept there is like, if I want it private, away from the, like nobody can effectively see this thing except for whoever has the private key. And how does that work in like a collective environment then? Because then like a shared privacy dome is kind of where we're at with the grouping, I think.
Yeah, so the flow that CJ and you were describing, I think, is really elegant for single player stuff, because you could just sign something in your wallet, and now that is, the private key. So you don't necessarily need to like pass a password around or store a private key in a file somewhere. You just let the wallet do that for you. In a group setting, it gets a lot trickier. But I wonder if there's a notion of a shared wallet that, everybody within a squad has access to those keys. They can import it into whatever existing wallet they have.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean, like if that's just for, encrypting and decrypting these posts, I think that seems reasonable. It's just like an empty wallet specifically for that purpose, not necessarily like a treasury or something that's holding funds.
Okay, so it's like squad identity, something like this. Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know enough about ENS really, but there is like this concept of subdomain. So I imagine, would it be possible to say have like a shared wallet that is for, like buzzard.eth, and then maybe have gorm.buzzard.eth and have your normal private key associated with it or something like that. I don't know if there's a flow
like
there.
Alias.
Yeah. Or like some, I don't know if Shahruz, like the trusted forwarding kind of stuff could work there as
Yeah.
well, or something like that.
I think there's a lot of cool stuff that could be done with that. I think there's still the problem of if we're using a private key from a wallet to encrypt a post,
Yeah.
we'll still need that wallet to exist with that private key. So the
Yeah.
ENS stuff is mostly just like attaching a name to a wallet, but it's not necessarily creating that wallet itself. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're going down the route of a group or a shared or a multi-sig style wallet kind of thing being, a method to post privately to a squad.
I mean, it makes some good sense.
Yeah, so on the multi-sig stuff, like does that, I don't fully understand it yet. I haven't looked at too many patterns, like just sort of poking around the DAO governance stuff and like sort of decision making. I don't fully understand it because I haven't walked through, but like, does that apply here potentially? Like how does that, if anybody has any idea?
It could. So a multi-sig wallet, essentially what the permissions it gives you is that you can run transactions or use the private key from it when you have multiple people who like click yes up to whatever threshold is the minimum for that, right? So if it needs like 51% or if it needs 2/3 or whatever. But basically the same way that a wallet right now will enable you to run transactions on the blockchain. So like if you want to post something or update a post, a single wallet will just be like, yep, you own this. I'm going to use my private key and I'm going to send that transaction to the blockchain. A multi-sig basically just puts a step ahead of that. That's like, we need to hit a certain threshold of people clicking confirm on this before that happens. But it's literally any function of a wallet. So a multi-sig can hold funds. It can be used to, update a post if that's something that is within our flow, or, update from private to public. It could probably be, a little janky in terms of experience.
Yeah.
Just because like a multi-sig wallet right now, you'd have to use like a Gnosis safe or like a third-party tool. So there'd be like another thing you'd have to go to do that right now.
Got it.
So I think that's one of the
some flow there down the line that's like, some collective.
Yeah.
There's probably a game or something like this that can tie into this mechanic, but we're probably a little bit off on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, both types can be involved in the same flow, right? You can kind of say the first creation process, all of the like inter-group stuff, just use one wallet, everything's simple, everybody knows everybody. And then for like the more of the outer ring published stuff, there could be the involvement of a separate multi-sig wallet that still points. So I guess it's not like we have to choose one or the other as much as both are just ingredients for potential flows, right?
Okay, so yes, I agree. So I'm feeling into the now, like, all right, so I've got gorm.eth and I'm like posting into a system, and then we have this like shared wallet, squad wallet. Is there a way to just like, that flow, I guess, like what is the relationship to the squad wallet from my heads up display? I'm sticking something into the system. Am I giving permissions, or am I like sending it over is something like this?
Yeah, actually, I guess I think, Dave, this is kind of hitting on a point that I was thinking about too. Is the author the group wallet, or is it the author is still Dave, but the content is encrypted by the group wallet?
Yes.
And then how do you have this like two kind of factor authentication almost, where you're saying, okay, I am Gorm, but I am also this other wallet in tandem, right? One is like being used more for encryption. Like, is there a way, like, at least to be signed into both, and like you need both really to actually do anything?
Interesting. Yeah.
I definitely like that layered approach.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Doable technically.
Yeah.
That I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
I think it should be. I mean, so the simpler version that I think like it, just to start off versus the Gnosis like multi-sig stuff, is just like somebody can generate an account anywhere And then now we can just share that private key amongst ourselves and import that into our MetaMasks or our Rainbows or whatever wallets that we're using. And then it's just an account that we can switch to. So it doesn't require the multi-sig stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think multi-sig may be more governance oriented. We don't necessarily need 4 of us to sign off on a private post being put up.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
the multi-sig might come into play with the publish event versus the share event. Yeah.
Yeah. So something where you need the group to work together to make a decision, whereas posting a thing, privately to a squad seems like it shouldn't require that step.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, I guess so are we posting as that squad?
The author stuff.
Yeah. So.
Well, that's what CJ was saying. Like, if there's a possibility to be both Dave and Buzzard, or both Gorham and Buzzard.
Yeah.
Is that feasible technically?
Like squad identity and individual identity.
How would that work though? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also wondering, like, like, to me, this is asking the questioner is like how do we express in code or on the blockchain that Gorham is part of Buzzard, and that being part of Buzzard has certain semantics associated with it.
So is it like a transfer of something to the like Buzzard wallet, like from you were posting it through, I mean, I don't have nomenclature on this.
Pipelining it.
Yeah, you were posting it through your wallet into, and then transferring it to Buzzard's wallet, right? And then there's like a chain of custody, something, we've got the metadata there somehow. This may be.
Oh, you're kind of, at least like what I'm hearing is like, you kind of produce the block as Gorham. And then now, once you produce that block, you say, that's great, but that's actually not on the blockchain itself yet. Yeah. And now you're saying, I want to send that to the Buzzard wallet to do something else on top of it. And then that actually goes and gets published. That's kind of the flow that I'm imagining, or like the staging that you're describing.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if, again, that makes sense technically or not. I don't know enough in this domain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this may be like novice patterns that people have tried before and they don't make any sense, but might as well just run them into the wall. Yeah, like, I mean, so one of the variables we have here is like when it goes on the chain, right? Like when that takes place. And then like, I still don't understand like all the movement of stuff around the system, and like, but the way that makes sense is that there is some concept within the interface that says that like you are within the sphere of posting within Buzzard, right? Which gives you like the Buzzard wallet, right? And then that thing has a relationship to the outside world, whatever. You have your individual wallet that you're going to be doing business with in the world. And like there is some process by which publishing into like the interface is like putting it on the chain on behalf of you, and then in the same process collapsing it into like there's maybe another step that says this is also a Buzzard post, right? So I don't know if there's a movement there that might be invisible to the user, but there is like some transaction that takes place that gives you the metadata that says this was, and it remains encrypted while in the Buzzard wallet universe. And then there is maybe a multi-sig process or something like that after the fact to move it out into the public sphere.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what the chain of events on all, technically, I don't know. Yeah.
What if you don't use the shared Buzzard wallet until you're publishing? And the shared Buzzard wallet is pulling into, so like anytime you're doing the relational OS, like the relational stuff, that would be using Buzzard, because you're effectively pulling things together as an entity versus posting as an individual. And then, yeah, whatever I don't know what the protocol is for moving that stuff, which is buzzard then, which has lineage, which is multiple different people, right? Because there should be a chain there that you can.
I think that could make sense as well, and it's almost like to me it feels like like a little bit of a fractal of the same thing, just in the sense like the sequence of events is like in a different order, but what you could do is all of that, like we all have access to buzzard, and then you collapse it into a post, which is really just a collection of token IDs, and you just choose to decrypt those tokens at that time. And that would be like potentially publishing outside of that collective.
Sounds good.
I think, yeah, generally all this stuff technically should be possible in like a number of ways. So I think there's like, you know, creative design decisions that could be made of like, do we want to share the private key? Do we want to have an NFT that you hold that gives you special permission? And that's what access to a squad is. Like, I think like with the Web3 stuff, like there's such nice primitives that anything should be possible. And like, yeah, I don't know. Does it make sense? Because I feel like something that's happening is that we're thinking code first, or then we're thinking flow first. And then like those conversations, when they go back and forth, you kind of like lose a thread potentially, versus like working through the problem direct. I wonder if it makes sense to, I don't know, like maybe think about the full user flow and design that in terms of like, this is what we want the interface and the experience to be like. How do we work backwards into code, or vice versa?
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that like, yeah, part of what I'm trying to do is get a grounding on what's, I mean, you just answered my question. Like all of these patterns are effectively, like we're thinking in terms of stuff that is possible to build. So now, like getting it into something that
is usable.
Yeah. So this is back to the MVP stuff.
Yeah. So for me, my like thought is, if we're all posting in a shared like sandbox that's private as buzzard, I would definitely want to see like obviously who posted what. I wouldn't want it to be just buzzard.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't, like, we don't know we're buzzard. We don't need to tell like ourselves that. So yeah, I want to see who posted the block basically, or who shared the block. Like like that seems like a no-brainer. I think, do we then get into what you can do with the blocks? And John had some like verbiage around this, like, because once they're all together, what then?
Yeah.
Like then is when we want to get into like the most simple, what's it called? MVP, relational stuff. What's the most basic, like, what would we want to do with them?
Yeah, we're back to the
specify an order.
Yeah.
What was that?
Like try to get to some sort of shared conception of an order of the blocks.
Sure.
And probably some sort of filtering to say, I think this should be part of it. I think this should not be part of it, and where it should be in the list.
Grouping then, yeah. Ordering.
Ordering is kind of, I guess, the more like final almost like output piece, whereas the grouping in between or like tagging is kind of trying to get to that consensus of the order.
Are we roughly talking about a feed here? Just trying to visualize.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's, I mean, we come back to that time and time again because it's such a known pattern, but yeah, the reverse chronological feed. But then, yeah, on top of that, though, being able to filter and search, like those are, I guess, relational too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of unit. I mean, if we're working with posts as the final product kind of thing, and maybe this is not the right way to think about it, but like we're putting artifacts into the system, blocks. They're composable. You can stick them together. You can move them around, whatever. Like, what is the on-ramp individually is there a collective on, like where does this stuff go? And then how is it stuck together, right? Like what are the mechanisms? Like, do you do queries? Do you drag them and drop them? Do you do you search and then just mark it like this is, is there a single post like in our MVP that's like you can only make one post and you can only make one post a week, and then everybody puts block, like what is the constraint on the system? And
Canvas stuff is popping into my mind now.
yeah, like having a form that we're working towards can scope the blocks in some way and scope the interactivity in some way. That's the loosest place I'm at with it right now, flow wise. Yeah, I don't know if that sparks anything.
Yeah, I think that is what we're trying to do, because I guess the entire purpose of this is that groups of people, not just us, but groups of people could get together, share a thought space, and the thoughts are expressed through blocks.
Yep.
And with that information, you could unearth there's something that could be unearthed there, and you would want to share that. You'd want to share it with through a post. So yes, the post can be variable. We can start with something more focused, if that makes sense, just to harness our thinking.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the game mechanics can come into play. Like we can just create an arbitrary post type that we can expand it out as we go. But like what I'm thinking is, I had this sort of vision of the thing where everybody has their own feed of blocks that are coming into the system based on whatever. Okay, that's the basic thing. I come to the system and I've got my own feed, and there are queries that I could go see everybody else's feed within the squad. And then for now, the centralized feed, I mean, there is all that's in the system, obviously, and that can be reverse chronological list of what everybody is posting. And then maybe there is something that is going to be published, so this is the concept of, I'm just using a single draft right now. You can only have one of them at a time. And then, it resets and you can make another one, right? It's just it doesn't need to be that way, but this is how I'm thinking about it. And then, okay, so there is a filtering mechanism where you get, I don't know how many blocks you want to put in one of these things to make it a post, right? And then what the coordination should be on these blocks. I don't know yet, but say a readable post is a dozen blocks, 24 blocks from a group of people,
yep,
right?
Yep.
And the process of publishing is basically pruning these blocks down into something that is legible and readable, but has the information from the lineage information from where it came from, and then whatever. Because there's going to be design patterns and navigable stuff, and I don't know what that stuff is yet. We need to get it in the page. But yeah, that's a rudimentary post in my mind. And then the multi-sig part of this is, okay, we all agree, or whatever that process is. There's a voting mechanism or some agreement mechanism to have it go out the door. And then it's out, it has a URL, or it has some other artifacts that are associated with, we could develop a PDF or whatever processing we want to do. And then there's some relationship in figuring all that flow stuff out. So that's the general gist. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, we need to be able to replay.
Yeah.
I want to be able to replay what you just said.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why doesn't Zoom just have a rewind
Mm-hmm.
kind of function?
So, I mean, I was kind of sketching it out here, but basically sounds like we're my feed, and then I want to choose a post from a list here, or one post, and this is now the shared space, and I want to be just dragging pieces into here, and then finally, once there's some sort of threshold met, we're going to move those pieces into arrangement, and then basically enough people sign off, and then it goes out to the big world.
That's the big world.
Mhm.
What you're saying.
That's chaos. Yeah,
That's
it leaves
chaos.
the safe nest and goes out into the
Ooh.
forest.
Leaving the nest.
Mhm.
Oh, I just think it's like, okay, so we do need a surface. Did you talk about this? Where there's like a shared canvas, some kind of space where we're all coming in that canvas or whatever that surface is. There should be something there. So then we need to figure this out, but there should be something there that specifies the constraints of the game. So you can see sort of like up at top, it's sort of like a header. Here's the game, here's the constraints. So when you're working like to pull blocks in, then you can sort of remember. And like down the road, there could be sort of like flagging stuff, like, because there's going to be people who are just doing things that are like not really following the game at all. And you're just like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah. So like, a feedback mechanism.
Yeah, like a way to flag it. Like, I don't think we need to get into this now because it's early days, but.
Yeah, we're going to hold it mentally or with some like external document or however we're going to do that. But yeah.
Right. So this is kind of like game context as opposed to block context.
Yeah, and the game is to create a post. So it's a surface to compose post and it's shared. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what, all right, I like to do this. I just walk through the flow over and over and over again. So
Totally.
Like we each have an individual display. It's going to be the web for now. It's got a text area, whatever that input looks like, you know, minimum is a text area and a send button or a submit button. That spits it out into a block. You know, it could be a list of the blocks that you've spit out into the system, and that is your primary view. And then there is the cumulative view for everybody's blocks. If you want to look at that, like figuring out how those views work, we'll figure out how the system, but okay. Then there is some mechanism to move it into the shared canvas. Like the shared canvas is just it's a query of all the, I mean, I don't know, this is a post, a draft post or whatever it is. And okay, so I'm trying to think like, you know, the clunkiest version of this is like, you have your list of blocks that you've put in. There is one outstanding post and it's effectively none of this stuff is in that post and you say, I want this one to go there. And so you just send it over there, right? Yep. And that can just be a drop down that says send to post.
Yep.
Like, because we got one.
Yep.
Later on, name them, you can create new ones, whatever, but keeping it simple. And so then that block is now available in the post interface, which just could be a list of blocks, right, that are reorderable. And with, you know, minimally they're reorderable and then you could hit publish and that goes out. But what else do we want to do within this post screen? Like what is the minimum set to what editing is the first thing?
Actions,
yeah.
One that comes to mind is reply, but reply isn't quite getting to the root of what I'm getting at. I think it's more like quote and reference or like point or just something that basically lets me go, there's a part in here and I'm replying to it and its relation to the rest of the blocks.
Okay. Help me understand that view. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like a more simplistic version of this to maybe get to what you're talking about, John, is like John posts a block. I have a thought or a block that I think sort of precedes that thinking and flows into John's block or flows out of it, like as a response to. But then you were saying something on top of that. So it's not like this leads to John's post or leads from John's post. So to and from, but then yours was more in context.
And annotation maybe, or like
okay,
the layer above.
Meta, kind of.
Yeah.
Do you have an example?
Again, maybe.
Was there like additional context in a way, like, or my thinking on this particular like sentence? Because I can imagine like we often like end up like someone might post like 2 paragraphs in Discord, and then you might like quote just this little piece. So it's like, how do you like respond to that effectively, kind of a thing? It's not like you're necessarily really replying to it, but you're saying this is like the original thing that is like spawning this new idea or whatever.
I guess, I mean, that's a good way to put it, but I think what I'm really like trying to get at is like a reply query, maybe, right? Just a way to even right click and say, I want to write relative to this block now. So that like when that block appears, I have some semblance of like how to move it into the space so that I'm not like trying to refigure out how to like, because I guess when I have this like list of blocks on the left, and they're just ordered by like time, if they're sort of going in there at like in a disconnected sense, sort of like I have a place I want to write, but I have to move it from here. Like I'm wondering if there's a way to smooth that.
And it's also sort of pointing to, it could be not just one block that you're responding to, but several.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me try to understand the metaphorical space we're working in here. So again, I'm gonna walk through the flow. You input a block, the block goes into your feed. I mean, we could shortcut some of this stuff, but assume everything's chunky. You then decide after the block is within the system to move it into the post draft, right? So now in the post draft, like is there a bucket of things that are on canvas and off canvas, right? So like the on canvas stuff is the potential future thing that goes out into the world. The off canvas stuff is all of the things that you are using to work with to put it on. I mean, this is just a model. It may not be the best model. And so in this setup, like, yeah, I'm trying to understand in relationship to what you're talking about. Like there is, you move a block on there and you want to respond or reply to, like, how does that work? Yeah, like help me get there.
Sorry, I think I'm back 30. I think my video crapped out for like 30 seconds. So
yeah. Did you lose all that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's all on a shared canvas, I think.
okay, so everything is on a shared canvas. What is the output that we're trying to, is it a blog post? Like, what is the nature of this thing? Is it something that is like that, but new? Like, what level of depth are we trying to shoot for here? Like, because there's the first level, linear blocks in a sequence equals blog post or something like this, but linear blocks with a meta layer of annotation is like a different kind of thing. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Yeah, I don't know.
I think so. I mean, like, I'm just sort of imagining the navigation feeling I have when I look at a blog post that's heavily annotated on hypothesis.
Yeah.
And it gives you like a very different way to explore the layers of information in it.
Okay.
And because like it can be lots of different things. It could have been like about the creation of it, or it could be like extra references that didn't fit in there, but like were like just side discussions. But sort of whatever dimension that it gives you, it's just like this extra, yeah, I mean, like layer on top of the original data. But I don't think that's the only sort of way. I mean, there's a sense that I have also that like spatial could be interesting.
Sure.
Because like by default in a spatial thing, you can write a post, but you can also make it a grid and
yeah,
like different sort of arrangements, especially if some of this is media, then you can kind of like move in different space. Like, I guess I'm starting, to like go towards Figma, but I mean, that's
sure.
Yeah, a whole like another, but yeah, I think that it does make sense to try and bake in just at least like one extra, I guess, dimension maybe for the data from zero. That'd be.
So the MVP that we're talking about is a group of people putting blocks into a system with individual feeds, then moving blocks that like might be towards some aligned post.
Yep.
Into a shared canvas.
Yep.
That shared canvas has what amounts to a main feed, like whatever top level content that gives you the general overview, and then one layer of like meta, and like whatever that layer of meta is, like it can be displayed in a bunch of different ways.
Yep.
Which this is where we could do a design jam on this kind of thing. Like what does a meta layer look like? Here are the basic principles on the thing. The question is, do we need that meta layer now, or do we want to try to build with just the linear blocks, you know, to get a post out the door? Like, you know, or does designing with this meta layer in mind, like, is it necessary at first? Like, I'm trying to understand where we are in that process.
So if we need to move beyond linear, basically.
Yeah, like, you know, is it enough for this first round of experiment to get get blocks in system, like like sort of establish I feel like the surfaces?
Yeah, I guess if we're actually going to write a post, I think we need the meta layer.
Okay.
But if we're going to play act like just creating a post, we don't need it. Because otherwise, like without the meta thing that John's pointing to, it's sort of like, it feels like children's games in my mind a little bit. Like the cat is next to the dog and like, it's like, put them in the right order, and you could do that. But like doing that with complex thoughts would be really like,
okay.
It would probably grind your gears. We can run into that though. Like,
I was kind of curious, like, I mean, I think there's maybe like two. So I think this meta layer is really hinting to me like the real like meat of the relational part of relational OS is like, as soon as you start building that, you start building out these relationships much more.
Yeah.
And I wonder, so I think if you go completely linear and just say like, forget the meta layer for now, there's like almost a meta layer that could happen like off chain in Discord or something like this. Which is maybe like one way, like maybe to avoid some of the like technical details that would be coming up with the meta layer. But the other side of it is, at some point we know we do want this meta layer, and we might also want to figure out those details. It's just kind of like in what kind of timelines, I think.
Yeah, it helps to scope it potentially if we don't try to bite the whole thing off. And we seem to do well when we just do like the most simple thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. Because because we could go nuts on this meta layer. Those patterns don't, I mean, like you said, the hypothesis thing and like sort of annotation stuff, that layer of UI is less developed, I guess. Like,
I think so.
A lot of stuff to play with in there.
Yeah.
So having the backbone, frustrating ourselves or whatever it is, like doing the simple thing, and then it's our visual context bucket. That's the way I'm looking at this. Like, we know that there's a bunch of UI in there, but we're just calling it context, and like patterns will probably bubble up, like, because there's a bunch of like part of it is there's a conversational layer, there's a I don't know what the different types of, like, there's conversational between us to produce the output, right? And that may be relevant to people externally. And then there is also like presentation stuff and I don't know the relationship between those things, and we'll probably just have to run into them. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. Okay.
I do think the like reference or relational, like from the technical perspective and like what it means for the schema, it's going to be very simple because we can just reference an IPFS hash and then whatever minimum kind of level of metadata on top of that. It seems like the design challenge is a much greater one than the technical one for that layer.
Yeah, I think they'll push on each other. Like, if we can get the technical layer expressed, and then like we can go through and be like, this view is available, this is available, this is available, then we can sort of put a face on it.
Seed it.
And I think this is back to where like Farzad we talked about last week potentially can come in, and if he has his like group of people that we can potentially put together a proposal on like the interface types that we want to play with here based on a simple working model, and then we can see what kinds of things we can do, and I think that's a good, I just want to go design all of this, which is not a good sign because I'll just make the craziest shit. So I think it's better to do it as a group and sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, like, because Farzad offered, we were going to put together a proposal. He offered to like use his agency for free to like come in because they want to play in Web3 and they haven't, I don't think, really done this. But we were like, we don't know if we have our heads on straight yet. But if we have sort of like the pattern of what we think we're doing, and then we want to move it into like a more nuanced UI, I think that would be easier for them to grok. Because I don't know that they need to get into all of like the technical stuff. Like,
I mean,
we'll build from, I think having a foundation makes sense.
That for sure. And then I'd like to do this in a way that like we sort of craft a proposal on what a fancier interface might be, and then offer the proposal and you can choose to play with that proposal rather than like us going to an agency and then having them produce artifacts like, because that's easy. Like we could put a brief and then the people could respond to it. It's a similar thing, but like, if you want to do this thing, show up at this time and we're going to do it. And like, if you're around the person, we're doing it together, right? Rather than like commissioning something. It's a subtle difference there, but I think it's important.
Well, I think that's one part of what Farzad's trying to understand is what it's like to work in a more collective, collaborative way versus doing
just like like harder exchange. Whereas here it's more like we have a vague cloud of things and we're like, here's what our perception of this cloud is. Now we're handing it off to you to like try and make sense of it. But there's already something that like they're kind of reflecting off of.
Yeah, we
want to do it together with them. Like that's part of it.
It's with rather than for.
But I think he's keen on that. Like I think that they do this as part of their like process. So this is all on a side, but
great. But I mean, it sounds absolutely fun.
I mean, I think
it's funny. We thought that Farzad, we mentioned this last time, was warmer, and he's like, I can't do this stuff too quick. I'm old. And Dave's like, hey, I'm old too. I can't do it either. It's really funny. Like, but he's like, I got a whole group of people though that are just like chomping at the bit, and we're like, okay.
I don't know what that process will look like, but
that's fine. But
you know, for now, I think this is what's sort of guiding how I'm thinking about the UI. So
I think keeping it like super simple, super streamlined to start with, and because if we're allowed to, obviously in blocks, sort of, we can do things where in the block it says what we want the action to be, but we're not able to do it at first, so we're sort of like.
Kind of like context, where maybe even can go into context, you know.
Which makes sense. We have that built into blocks too, but we're sort of exposing that information then, because it's UI context, I guess, or like, which is relational content. Like, I mean, what's the difference? I don't know. It's blurring, which is, I think, good.
Yeah, and I think the difference you drew between creating a post, I mean, maybe I think arranging a post versus creating a post. And the first one is much easier because if you still want to communicate where something else should go, but you can't express it through the interface, you can like use a different channel and like write it in Discord or like, you know, whatever, send an email. The point is that final output is like not limited to how well you can communicate how it should be. And it cuts down on how much like technical stuff I think that needs to be figured out. I mean, it feels pretty like doable.
Okay. Yeah, so now it's just sort of the interfaces that we need for this next, like our simple poster guy, which is back to sort of where we were in the Figma from before. We can scope some of that stuff back, but the surfaces we've got are like, well, they're queries again. So your particular feed, like of stuff that you're putting in the system, the like actual blocks, what they look like, what we're, I mean, text to start for sure. And then you know, some avatar or something that we're pulling from wherever we're pulling that from. I mean, I guess we can figure
ENS, I guess,
details
Another
out.
block.
Yeah.
or another block. Yeah.
And then some UI that says like, so how do we want to do the UI to get it into the post canvas or whatever? How or what's the process of doing that? How do we want to do
Yeah.
that?
Select versus drag and drop sort of thing? Like, is that what you're,
I mean, we can do.
what's the easiest thing to do?
I will definitely say, based on my limited experience with JavaScript, I would be more comfortable implementing a select and send button than like a drag and drop interface that does sizing mobile browsers and everything, because that just sounds a little scary. But probably doable.
Move. Yep.
Maybe not by me.
So is this a two-way thing that basically like it's included in the post or it's not included in the post? And then this is like a.
At the block level.
Yeah. So like, you know, I'm thinking about like, so navigating over to there's a place that there is one shared post and then everybody can go into it. And then it's all the blocks that we have individually decided should go into the post.
Yep.
There's also the pattern where if you can look at everybody else's feeds, right? Because they're just queries. You could pull in other people's stuff. Like other people could, you know, like you can go look at my list of things and be like, this should be in there, right?
Okay.
Okay. So like everybody has access to this ability to.
So all
like,
blocks are exposed in the sense of include in post. Yeah.
Effectively, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I guess that
that's
gives
nice.
some nicety to the like maybe overall like feed structure. If you're just looking at everyone's, you can be like, oh yeah, like that's also makes sense.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Yep.
then you do the UI thing on the feeds that says this block is already in the shared canvas.
Well, there's only one shared canvas right now. And I think that thing's just a toggle. It's either in the canvas or not.
Okay.
Yeah, but Kristen, are you kind of asking about like whether the block stays in that view and just like changes visually versus like disappears?
Interesting. Just
That at least that's what I heard.
yeah, not that it would disappear, just knowing that it's already accounted for, I guess.
That's kind of what I'm feeling like a I don't know, a glow, an outline, a little dot that just basically means that this thing is here, but it's also there.
Yeah.
And there's some relation there.
Well, Dave's saying the easiest way to do this is just a toggle. It's already been toggled. Yeah.
It's either on or
I
off.
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. Eventually, I think we'll want to know who toggled it then.
Bunch of things.
And
in there.
Yeah.
Let's just
within
in or
which-
out.
Yeah, I was about to say there's like voting, there's all kinds of stuff that can go in that like really fast.
That's
Well,
good. Yeah.
multiple games going, which there will be at some point. You're going to want to know which games use
Yeah.
block, but
Yeah. There's a whole
we got one
layer
game
of
right now.
UI.
Yeah, I definitely
singular
I
game.
agreed. Like a toggle, or I was imagining like more of a multi-select, but yeah, like something very quick and like just a state change, just a single bit, and then like that block is now in a different state.
Yeah, and anybody can toggle it. If we want to track all that toggling and have that part, we see if that pops up, and that's an easy thing to do. But for right now, like if toggled in post, if not. So
Yep.
Um,
And then the canvas or post with some kind of header that has game details.
so the
It's like metadata, exposed metadata. So there's a create. So there's not only a create block, but there's create post now.
yeah. So it's
Or
Yeah.
it's create the context of the post. It's
Or-
sort of like it's a house for it, because like the post itself is composed of blocks, and this is pre bringing blocks in. It's like we're going to do a game. Sort of, it creates a page basically to host or to house the.
I mean, we can do that whole process. Yeah, I mean, we have to figure that out now. So we have like one postable canvas, right? And like, that's of a type, obviously, like it's got some structure to it or whatever. We could build out that stuff, or we could just have one. And then like.
Yeah, I was thinking is like, you almost might just like at least like on the more like technical side, just like manually created, is not even create a real page for the creation of it. Is just manually create that post, and then now the page references only that.
No.
And then once we've gone through the process of doing these, we'll be like, all right, well, here's what a post type is.
Yep.
Here's some other stuff.
Yeah.
Want to create a post creator or whatever it is. Like
Sure.
we can start talking about that. But for right now, just like blocks in the system, selecting blocks into Canvas, and then some stuff to do on the canvas. So if we get them all in like it's just a linear, it's a stack, right? And so do we want to add like reordering to this thing, or like what are we feeling on that? Like to the actual post screen.
I like reordering.
I think the simplest thing for now, because we're going to keep it linear, is reorder. So this is
Okay.
like the pun
Yeah.
sort of chat thing.
And I think the semi-good news is at least there's a way to like do reordering with buttons, so it's reasonably like stable and mobile.
Yeah.
It will look a little bit like Reddit, but I think there's ways around that.
Yeah, I think we can poke into what's workable on that front. Like we know that we're going to have reorder. The simplest will be like up, down arrow, chunky, 1980s reordering. There's like some decent React.
It works. Yeah.
And some of those do work on mobile. The affordances are a little wonky, but there's also the other two that like primarily doing desktop reordering and then input or legibility. We can figure all that stuff out. See how crappy it is. Okay, and so what about editing, and like how are we thinking about that stuff?
Editing blocks.
Yeah. Editing blocks / posts. I guess reorder is really the only way to edit a post, huh?
Yeah, for now.
Well, if we want to keep things non-destructive, which we probably do, right? Can you copy a block then and edit it?
That's what we talked about, how with the IPFS stuff, that's how it works mainly, right?
Yeah. Feels like a lot for this though, for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something that's coming up in my mind right now that I know we'll run into for doing this is you're going to have the canvas or the post arranging surface. You're going to want to change things or add things. You're going to have to leave that surface and go back to like the compose new block, add a new block, and then drag it in. So it's going to feel really clunky because something is going to be missing, right, in the canvas, unless you can immediately add into the canvas. So there could be a thing where you're just copying someone's block and then editing it. And again, just notating what you're doing if we don't want to build it all in up front. Because like my sense is if I wrote a block, someone else dragged it in and then changed it, that would be annoying. So I'd want it to be, because then we're losing something. So you want to maintain that and then copy it and then edit it. But you want to know that like who originally authored it and then who edited it. Maybe.
Yeah. I guess I was thinking if you edit a block, definitely you can potentially put your name on it. And I guess, does this create like an entirely new token? Because no matter what, it's going to create a new IPFS hash.
Yep.
The edit's always going to create that. So either the lineage is tracked through the token itself, or you have another token to symbolize that. I guess in the UI, it's possible to say like this block has had like 5 edits and you could see all the previous edits.
If that's somewhat straightforward to do, that would be useful. Because then if the history, the lineage of that block, you could see all the different states that it's been in, all the different content states. And then presumably each block has the ability to be ordered, right? Like there's orderability again here. You could move like, oh, I don't like the current edit. I'm going to move this other one up in its place.
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're getting into the weeds here.
Yeah, we're adding the meta stuff now.
I think it's actually, I mean, whether we expose it on the front end or not, I think it will happen in the
Yeah.
blockchain / IPFS kind of space as it is.
That's good then. We can just run into
Yeah, so in some sense, maybe it's in the category of like a UI thing rather than like a data protocol thing, right?
Yep.
Where we could presumably just say in a totally separate branch, add the reply functionality, and really all it's just doing is like displaying more information and maybe changing what's recorded, but like the base layer stays the same, is what it sounds like. It is just more of like a how we present the data.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm going from the like, I'm sort of acting out it in my head. Like I've got a block, put it into the shared canvas. I want to do some stuff with this thing. Like where's my initial frustration? Like, you know, I've got a typo in it. I want to edit the typo, right? Or whatever the hell it is. Or I phrase something or something like that.
I think it's less that you want to edit your own blocks, it's that other people can edit other people's blocks, which is fine. I think we want that.
Yep.
But it's the situation where if you wrote something and someone edited it and it changed the meaning for you and it's losing something,
yeah.
you're like, I like something's
Yeah,
lost.
some way to like revert it without destruction of some sort.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But we're saying technically, there is no destruction. There's another hash created there. It's encoded somewhere. So we're just talking about how to display that most simply in the UI. So it's showing lineage basically.
Yeah, you've got like block history. So like there's like a working surface for each block in the post. And then there's like a little, like you've got whatever is bubbled up to the top layer, right? And then you have content that is associated around it, right? That you could sort of move into. Here's all the, here are all the like edits and whatever else. And like, yeah, okay. So, but there's only one top level in the trunk of the post, I guess. And there's a bunch of other stuff that makes up, I mean, this is the beginning of our meta layer. It's just showing up. So yeah, what is the nature of the related content to this block? So you can have like a prime block prime, and then all of its corresponding like componentry that made up the block. Like you could just list that stuff out. Like it can just expand. Is the simplest way I can think about it. You have a list of blocks that make up your post, and then there is something that says like, show me related content or whatever. The question, does that related content go out onto the, like when you publish the post?
No.
So it's working material effectively. Okay.
Because presumably there's an agreed upon version of that block that we're publishing. But there's, a lineage to show how we got there.
I think this one would be interesting to get in the page and then spit out what we have in relationship to it. Like, all right, here's an unordered list of the stuff that we know is related to it. Okay, so
what's the most simple UI that you can think of to show different states of the same block, like the history of the block?
Give me how would you work with it? Like, what are you doing with it?
I want to see what the prior iterations of it were.
Give me how those prior iterations would come to pass.
So you post a block that says the Buzzard Squad is figuring out the UI. And then I go in and edit that and I say the Buzzard Squad is figuring out UI, UX, and specifically focus on the meta layer. And then John goes in and he's just like, adds to that maybe, or like scraps it and rewrites it completely. And I want to know
Yep.
like where, like what the origin was, because maybe John rewrote it in a way that I'm not understanding. So I want to go back to see.
Yeah, like rewind.
Yeah, or like I wrote something and then Shahruz edits it, and then I don't, again, like I don't understand, or I like, where did my initial post go? Because I'm like missing something here. And then I'm like, okay, I need to go back and look, because it feels like what Shahruz posted is similar. Yeah, he edited mine. Okay, it lost a little bit, so I'm gonna edit again to like include a little bit that, does this make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's the basic linear history, which is like you have a block, you can expand out, then there's a list of
Yeah.
all the edits
Yeah.
on that block, reverse chronological. Most recent edit is at the top.
Yes.
And like there's a couple different patterns here. You can have that list be like, you can select anything from that list to be the prime block,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
I don't know what that does if you then edit that, you know, where it goes in the all that shit to figure out. So
Yeah, UI wise, I'm kind of imagining Arena a little bit, where I
Okay.
click into a block and then on the right side I have like more details probably, and then below that, like history, past versions, past revisions, edits, whatever that word is.
yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, how does that, is there, so any block in there you can edit, and it,
And you're just
you get
storing the
recursive
history.
forever thing here.
You're
So-
storing the history like locally somehow, UI wise, so you can see it.
Yeah, it's not like deeply disconnected under like a title in some drop down menu, like miles away. It's like
Yeah.
right there, so you can like presumably include it in your next.
It's hidden
Oh.
from, I think, view on first glance, but so this is where like, we don't have to answer this now.
No, yeah,
Like, I don't know. So another part that's coming up that kind of like how Rome, I don't know if other like editing surfaces work like this, where you can open up basically multiple like, pages within.
yeah,
So you're like reading something and then you're like, I want to pull this thing into Canvas. So then the thing you're reading, the Canvas opens up, you now see what that piece that was added.
Yeah.
And then on the Canvas, you're looking at other blocks, and then you want like a third panel, it's paneled. Like, I see things in panels for this. So you could see the lineage of one of those blocks, other panels. So you're keeping everything on one screen. That I think comes later, but like
it definitely does.
but that's sort of the idea that it's like
Sure.
a modal, but it's div block piece of the yeah. So I don't again, I don't know what simple UI is for this for now. Maybe it's opening a whole new page, which is fine. You have to go back or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
One way I was thinking about it is like, I don't know if there's like, you can almost like toggle a view. One is like normal text view, and then the other is like meta explorer view, and it's the same page. It just adds extra information that I can imagine at the top. Like you essentially have like, this says it has 3 revisions and a little like drop down arrow, and then it just has like, you know, revision and the time, and revision on the time, and you just click the times, and it just shows you the different like text.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just where we put that. Is it in the page? Is it a column? You know,
Right.
how
Where does
complex
it go?
I think the steps that we're going to do here are to try and get it expressed in the page in the clunkiest way possible, like, and then start to understand the scaffolding of the system that we would want to like work with these kinds of blocks. Because we have to figure out a metaphor for like, you know, our UI.
Yes.
And it'll be a lot easier to do that if we can express the kinds of things that are possible. Obviously, it's a push-pull thing. Like we need to be able to edit this. All right, so when you edit it, like what is the affordance from editing it? Where does it spit out into the page? Okay, we've got it in the page. You know, like this thing probably needs to be in a bucket over here, right? Like, so I'm trying not to jump ahead into like the 3-panel or any of those things. Let us sort of find it.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot easier to manipulate the stuff if we have actual data and actual patterns that we can use.
Yeah. But it does sound like the panel and a lot of the interfaces that we're proposing here all sort of just work on both the like data and the technical side.
Yeah. I think that
and
we're
that,
not, we probably aren't
Strange.
predicting anything too radically new. But there are these little like,
Yeah, that'll make more sense than others. I think
Yeah.
like the reason I go into like paneling and stuff like that is just from where I'm at right now, that feels the most like
sure.
sensible, but yeah, it could be completely different.
Well, I think it's interesting in the sense as well as everyone might have different conceptions of what the ideal interface for them is. But if there's multiple interface components that are operating the same thing, you can essentially like build your own
Interesting.
OS.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, this is the component that works best for me. It's like, here are all the available components for this thing. Here's what I like.
Roll
And just be
your
like, this is the one I want to use.
Yeah, roll your UI in relational OS.
What's
That's
most
cool.
important here is that we are getting the verbs that you were talking about. Like this is back to the prepositional stuff for any of the relational things. Like, you know, there's patterns like select these two and merge, or duplicate, and all of these kinds of things. Those are going to be, that's our interactive schema. And how you go about doing that? Do you like pulling it over into a bucket, or do you like select it, or do you command line or whatever? That's less important than what like operating the blocks afford you. So trying to get that stuff expressed in the minimal way into the page is our best bet, because then you can bring in designers and they'll all have a different opinion on how the tool affords, interaction or whatever.
Minimal expression, baseline functionality.
Yeah. So I think trying to run ourselves into like, all right, we want to reply, or we want to merge, or we want to transgroup, or we want to quote back, or all of these kinds of things, and then bubbling up the shittiest like expression of that into a web page is like where I'm trying to, like, it's just clunky. Like,
I like the clunkiness.
But the good, ideally.
Jankiness, and that's expected.
Yeah, you give a janky interface to somebody who wants to clean it up, they'll go nuts. So like, that's the most effective right now, I think. Okay. All right. Back to a list of interfaces here. We've got our single player like heads up. We've got a button in the system that gives us our like sort of block poster. Are we just, because before I had it designed where like an individual could put together a post with a bunch of blocks, right, using that like chat interface, but we're kind of moving into something different here. Like there's just like,
it's a little different, but it feels like it's more of about rearranging what's on that page already.
Yeah.
Rather than like adding or removing much. It sounds like things feel very, very similar. It's one thing that comes to my mind is like a split view instead of like different pages, where on the left I have like some sort of explorer and queries and results and my feed and whatever, like all this like assorted data yet. And then on the right, kind of like just maybe the post, the only post. If there's one post, it's the post.
Yeah, so left is browser. That's our browser. Like at the top, there's going to be like a query thing. And like you can say like all members, and that gives you everybody's stuff. You can, just me. That gives you your stuff. Yeah, and then whatever combination, I mean, it depends on what we want to query wise, but I eventually see like some browser bar or some kind of thing like that. And then for now, like right-hand column, like that's our single post. We're moving things over there. So you can effectively like skim through stuff and then click the button and then it pops over here and then, you can do whatever else. All right.
There you
adding
rearrange.
a block. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just I mean rearrange and maybe that's pretty much it right now. But that's enough.
So block adding interface and block editing interface. We're back to that. So like, what do we need in this little block maker thing? Like, what are we gonna? Because there's text minimally.
Yeah.
And then are we exposing like a context field in that? Like what is the little form that we're like, what is the composition of the form, I guess, is what we're looking at. Like, what do we need in there? Text area and submit button, obviously. And then are we doing media of any other type other than text, or do we want to leave it to text for now?
I think images might be a pretty low like effort, high ROI.
Okay.
That's
I mean, video would be definitely hard, but like images are, especially with IPFS, feel like marginally there's very little difference. There's a little bit of stuff with the UI form for like choosing. I guess maybe another thing I'm wondering is, does an image come with a caption? But it sounds like probably no. Like an image is just an image. It has a context field, and then it can just as itself be selected into the post as well. So there's kind of like really cuts away at the do I need a post to be added into the post, and if it's just like basically just text paragraphs and images that's like going into.
So like Tumblr style, basically, if it's an image post, it's an image post. That's all you get. If it's a text post, it's a text post. Like you hit plus, and then you like, so say there's a add post button, and then you select type, and then it's limited to whatever set, just add an image.
Yeah.
Would that be a post or a block?
Block.
Block, yeah, sorry.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make sure.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess to answer that, like this way we're keeping the idea of a caption very open.
Yeah.
Maybe a caption actually means an image in 6 blocks. I don't know, but like that means essentially we don't make a judgment on that. We just sort of leave it open and allow that whole question of arranging pictures and text next to each other. Like that's all on the right side, basically.
Yeah, and like the way that, like, for example, a caption would work in the reverse chronological feed is you'd see someone post an image and then like caption, basically they've just so it's
I mean, we'll probably,
it's functional, but weird. That's fine.
We're getting the primitive in the page.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then we can expand these things pretty quickly.
And context kind of can provide a caption. It just depends on usage.
True. Yep.
Yeah, I think, okay, so minimally every block needs like whatever media surface, text, image, audio, whatever the hell it is. For now, we're just doing, choose for the image, pull it down from file system, whatever, gets it in the system. Then there is a sort of universal context like field that we're going to add to all of these. Do we need like a drop down for type, or can we sniff that, or how do you want to handle that?
I mean, I guess if we just have text and image, it can kind of probably be inferred.
Okay.
If we have some standardized way of putting an image on.
I think okay. So basically we're just looking at like, a text area or a chooser, file chooser, and then context will add whatever the hell else to the block, and then you post it and goes in, and then that can be the edit interface. Like if you want to, I don't know how, like if we can swap out images or change the text or whatever else, and then there's like some historical view on that somehow. I need to figure out that basic thing.
Yeah, there doesn't need to be an edit for image, does it? Because it's either there or it's not. I mean, you could delete it. I don't know if we need.
I guess edit image is more like replace or update.
It's the same pattern as the text. It just, whether or not we need that now, I mean, it comes up, but it's low priority, I think. because we're mostly playing in the text for now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then yeah, how that opens up, if it's in a modal, if it's in line, whatever, we can figure all that crap out. It's just a component. So
Yep.
okay. Yeah, the left right column thing. Yeah, I don't know what else. Like
What's the left right column?
it's just a type of the interface. Like you can have the browser on the left-hand column and then the currently open post on the right-hand column. Then we have the post process, which we need to figure out, which we don't need to figure out now. We can just get it all barfed into the page for now and then do another round on.
For publish, you mean?
Yeah, for publish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'll wait actually, because I have a technical question when we're talking about UI.
Okay, I think I have one more UI question to slip in, maybe proposal and suggestion. I don't know. I guess I'm kind of imagining the layout here is both like left column, right column. One thing that I'm sort of going around in my head is like if the query's on top and the default is reverse chronological, then it feels like Twitter. And then if we want to like flip that and put sort of the input down here on the bottom, then messages sort of like stream upwards. And
Yeah.
it does, I think either option sort of makes sense here to me, but the feeling is different. And I'm like wondering if we want to be opinionated, if we want to leave it completely open, like basically should the text field like move relative to where the rest of the blocks are? So if you're kind of like adding to a pile versus extending a list. And
Bottom feels more like a chat interface, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So in the case that so right now I'm thinking about the sort of default, I mean, it doesn't matter. Just the way I want to input it is just like, I've got a screen, I get my thoughts out into that thing. It's just my stuff in there primarily. This way I'm not worried about overloading a stream or any, it's just, here's my stuff. Yeah, optimizing for chat there, I don't know, maybe because then
I like both.
What's that?
I said I like both, and I think one of the questions, I guess maybe it's going back to what is the clunkiest interface, and it's like, yeah, a new page, and so you kind of abstract that away in the sense like that's another design decision that can kind of be made later. You're like, okay, we're just going to make an entire new page for this block inputter, and it's just this dumb form. And that can be replaced into a component later or something like that.
Yeah, because the chat interface comes with a bunch of stupidity that you have to build into the page to make it feel decent. Whereas if you just have a button at the top of the page, and it just adds another block to the top, it's easy enough. Getting it from the bottom up, there's more things we have to arrange in the page, going with the but again, React does weird things because you have to rebuild everything, so I don't know. So yeah, for now it's what is the sort of appropriate metaphor with the least amount of implementation, I guess. So
yeah, and running into the friction kind of thing, as we use it.
Because I think
if it's heavier lift to do the chat, but we start using it and we're like, it would be really cool to have that option. We want to build it, run into it, and then agree. Let's just knock that out.
Yeah. But again, I guess the thing that excites me here is that really this is just a interface position and query question. Yeah. And that means at some point you could just click edit on the canvas and just choose what feels most natural in that moment, or switch between modes, or have the game define it. There's just basically it feels very non-blocking, and that I like that feeling.
Yeah, we're just figure out what our clunky version is here to so that we're still using the thing, so it's not too crappy.
And I think one thing about the clunky stuff that's also kind of interesting is that it can be like default for everyone, but we also have the sandbox in the repo. So if you want to spin up essentially like a different version, you can just wire up pieces in the sandbox as well.
Yep.
Or want to create your own, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just exposing, like, exposing our basic query tools, getting our basic add thing in here, you know, like.
And giving something as an example to edit.
Yeah.
I think that's like a massive thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, what do we want the blocks like lengthwise and all this other stuff? Like, is it like a tweet? Is it like, what are the constraints that we want to feel into there? Like,
tweet to paragraph, I feel like, but not like
sentence to paragraph.
But not like it's like an idea though. So I wouldn't put in like a paragraph that is 3 different ideas that relate to each other. It would just be the first part of the paragraph, like, which could be like 3 sentences, but all be like the same thought.
okay, so the unit of block is thought.
I mean, we can see how people do it. I don't know. I would say for now we could limit if you want to, like
No, okay. I think that we
I feel like it should maybe be a soft like norm. Basically, try to keep your block to the length of somewhere between a sentence and a paragraph, and like if you just happen to have to spew out 7 paragraphs into a block, so be it. But we'll figure out why that was.
Yeah. I mean, the input will scope a little of this. It'll just feel weird to do that in a text area that it looks more like a chat bubble, you know, or whatever. So this is where we don't have to mess with this too much, but this is like the UI sort of the input will constrain the type kind of thing. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to figure out. Okay, yeah, where do we? Because we've got like the general constraints of this thing. Yeah, where do we go from here on this?
Yeah, what's the? I mean, we have the constraints for a game. Then the game is to build this interface.
I mean, we can do
that as a group, and then
probably, and then I can probably drive like a Figma session where
productive.
I'm warm enough to do it like real shitty, like
that's all we need.
And as long as you know, we're like, all right, we need to get this block on the page and this thing on the page and then this thing. You know, I can just lay out some canvases. We've got some stuff to pull from before. I think that we can get our basic build like scoped that way. And I'm just no design systems or anything like that, just getting things on the page. I think that's where we're at next. We just have
I guess that's part 1
from
that's part
2.
And we could talk about doing, you can see how it feels like if we want to keep doing everything together, or this is an interesting opportunity to do an async build just to see what happens. Like, so we agree on the UI, and then we'll figure out like who builds it out from there, and like what that, because it would be interesting to feel into that, because we haven't really done any async build stuff.
Yep.
But we don't have to decide that now.
So post interface.
Post interface. We start with the Dave driving a UI like Canvas, Figma sort of thing. We build it out. We'll probably talk about some technical stuff here. If we're doing it in Figma, then engineer developers can like write down, like there could be notes on the side about, all right, this is how it might happen. So we might have like a whole, like it's ready to go, and it might be divide and conquer, and then I don't know, depending on what it is, the lift might be not too big either, which would be cool to actually build it into the page, implement it.
It should be completely doable to do that. Like, we don't have that many interfaces here.
No.
There's some we'll be able to work like visually work out a lot of these, like, because we're all having to hold this stuff mentally in flows. We can get it visual. Like, do we want this thing there or there?
Yep.
Yeah.
All get it done.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a build. We'll have like a visual spec that
Yep.
like from the thing, I think. So
Yeah, depending on how quick it goes. I mean, it could be just one session and we're just doing a longer sync session, but I say we just stick with the design, like shared sync session, and then see how it goes and then go from there.
yeah, I think, I mean, we're like 4, 5, 6 surfaces here, something like that, with the like components and stuff, and then having you guys help me scope like what needs to be a component and all that will be good, because then we've got the structure of the page that we're building out. Yeah, I think that's good. It should go pretty easy.
Sweet.
I'm just gonna float this that, yeah, if y'all want to do part 2 today, I'd be down. Next week makes just as much sense, but I have some energy left, so
I'm out for a couple hours, like at 1, so and I'd like to have lunch before then, ideally. But if you are free after that, I would be down.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Do later in the day too. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, let's pick a time and I can work out how freaked out I am about having to run Figma.
What happens? Actually, John mentioned that he was nervous before he drove, and then Shahruz was like, "Can you drive first, John?" But I think there's a thing with being in the hot seat that is sort of like, oh my God. So that's interesting. just
I will also say though, one thing that I do like about when somebody has their screen share on is that it feels like it changes the focus from like
the
visual camera to like information and focused, like it just kind of at the very least synchronizes attention in a way that I find very satisfying. But yeah, there's also the, oh my God, that attention is on something that I'm doing. So like those balance themselves out.
I mean, I got to remember whether or not I can still use any of these things. So we'll find out.
He's been
That'll be great.
Talking about how he's like working it back into getting to work. Like, I mean, this has been like, I don't know, month-long process, but this being here has been more of a focus. And I looked over at one point and he's got like the table set up so he could work, like, so his keyboard's there and like the mouse and the mouse pad, and I was just like, oh look, it's you know, we're getting a little closer. He's like, yeah, you could possibly work here.
Awesome.
A mouse now, so I don't have to flip out about trying to do this on a trackpad. So
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah,
it destroys. That's how you get carpal tunnel syndrome or something. It was just doing it on the trackpad in Figma.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I did it for a couple hours and I was like, oh man, I need to like get myself a portable mouse or something if I'm going to try to do this.
Yep. Highly recommend. I think every time I feel that pain start happening, I reevaluate my life, because I'm just like, there's a very, very bad signal happening here. Like, what is the cause? Let me fix it ASAP. Otherwise, life gets worse.
There's this one yoga class that I take, like I save my favorites from the platform I use, and I forget where in the class, but she has you just put your arms out and then you're just doing like flattening your palms out. Like, if that hurts right now, she's like, you need to like reevaluate how often you're doing this, because it shouldn't hurt. It means you're on the computer too much. And sometimes I'm like, oh, that's like a good reminder to think about that. Do this.
Yeah, definitely.
Just get a trackball. An ergonomic, like, what is it, the desks where you lay down and then you have like all of the screen of you, and then like you're just in
a I can't wait on a hammock
screen cocoon.
Just put it in a trailer. It'll be my 5G and ergonomic rig. All set. Okay, let's want to do this.
I'm probably free around 3:30 to 4 p.m. is my guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say
probably 4.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that's 4 Pacific for you, CJ. What about, are y'all still in Pacific or?
We're Pacific, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Not Pacific, but Arizona does weird shit with the
Yeah,
daylight
they don't do
savings.
Yeah.
daylight.
So I was like,
Oh,
oh man,
yeah.
we're gonna be 1 hour off and it's gonna be really confusing. And like I spent like 5 minutes being like, wait, it's the same time. And I'm like, it's just
I hate time zones so much. Oh
Oh,
God.
actually, this is a potential project at some point, creating a good UI for
Yes.
PC like scheduler across the world.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Please. Please so much.
That's our $1 billion idea that comes out having to do this. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
All right, 4 o'clock. I took notes in the current squawk and have a legend for emojis. So, you know, check it out.
Sweet.
Good work. Cool.
That's all I got.
All right, are we just gonna do a fresh Figma? Or do we want to build it on the other thing or what?
I mean, I like the idea of just doing it to the top right of where we were and just sort of like continuing that thread so that all the other stuff is just kind of quickly available. But maybe if it needs to be like maybe a separate frame or a page, that's fine too.
I think it's fine. I can just pull from all the doodads that I pulled in there. Just make some new stuff.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Sweet.
All right.
See you later.
Exciting.
Cool.
Cool.
Later
Nice.
today.
Bye.
CF4.